The ship hung in the darkness, like a sleeping god. 3,000 years it had waited above Carveth Prime, a world of purple storms and empty cities. The planet below had once been home to a great civilization. Now only ruins remained. But the ship above them had not aged a single day. Its black hull caught no light. Its weapons never fired. Its engines never moved. It simply existed, patient and eternal, as empires rose and fell beneath it. The Galactic Concord called it the Void Reaper. Commander Jael Torvon stood on the observation deck of his cruiser, the Starlight Covenant, and stared at the ancient vessel. He had seen many things in his 200 years of service. He had fought in 3 wars. He had discovered new worlds. He had watched stars die. But nothing had ever made him feel as small as this ship. The Void Reaper was enormous. It stretched across the void like a blade made of shadow. Its design was unlike anything in the known galaxy. No sharp angles, no visible weapons. Just smooth curves and strange patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. The ship was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are beautiful, like a predator sleeping in the grass. "Commander," said his adjutant, a young Velith officer named Prahl. "The expedition team is ready to board." Jael did not turn from the window. "How many attempts does this make?" "This will be the 47th official expedition, Commander, not counting the unofficial ones." 47 times the greatest minds of the Concord had tried to unlock the secrets of the Void Reaper. 47 times they had failed. The ship allowed visitors to enter. It did not harm them, but it never responded to their commands. Its systems stayed dark. Its computers stayed silent. It was like trying to wake a corpse. "Who is leading this expedition?" Jael asked. "Senior Scientist Mylis of the Velith Academy. She has assembled a team of 12 specialists from across the Concord, Velith engineers, Orani telepaths, Kreth weapons experts, even a Threll biologist in case the ship has organic components." Jael finally turned. His scales were a deep blue, marking him as a member of the warrior caste of his species. His eyes were gold and tired. "And the human?" Prahl's thin mouth twisted. It was not quite a smile. "Lieutenant Elena Vasquez, Junior Systems Analyst from Earth's Space Division. She is here because the humans demanded representation. The humans have been part of the Concord for 40 years. They have barely left their own solar system. What could they possibly contribute to this mission?" "Nothing, Commander. That is the point. The human is a political gesture. Earth's government wanted to feel included. Senior Scientist Mylis has been instructed to keep her out of the way." Jael looked back at the Void Reaper. Somewhere in its depths, answers waited. Answers about the architects, the ancient race that had built this ship and then vanished from the galaxy. Answers about where they had gone. Answers about what they had left behind. "Very well," he said. "Begin the boarding procedure." The shuttle crossed the void in silence. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the small window and watched the Void Reaper grow larger. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were sweating. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a child on Earth, reading stories about the stars. Now she was here, about to step inside the most mysterious ship in the galaxy. She was also completely terrified. The other members of the expedition sat around her, speaking in languages she did not understand. The Velith scientists talked in rapid clicks and whistles. The Orani telepaths communicated without words at all, their large eyes blinking in strange patterns. The Kreth warriors said nothing. They simply sat with their arms crossed, their massive bodies taking up 3 seats each. Elena was the smallest person on the shuttle. She was also the youngest, and she was very aware that no one wanted her here. "Human!" The voice came from beside her. Elena turned to find Senior Scientist Mylis watching her with all 4 of her eyes. The Velith were tall and thin, with pale skin and too many joints in their fingers. Mylis was old even by their standards. Her skin had the gray color of weathered stone. "Yes, Senior Scientist? When we enter the ship, you will stay at the back of the group. You will not touch anything. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will record what you see and nothing more. Is this understood?" Elena nodded. "Yes, Senior Scientist." "Good." Mylis turned away. "I do not know why your government insisted on sending you. This mission requires expertise that your species does not possess. But you are here now. So you will make yourself useful by not getting in the way. The words stung, but Elena did not argue. She knew what the other species thought of humans. Children, newcomers, a species that had only just learned to walk among the stars while others had been flying for thousands of years. Earth had joined the galactic Concord, hoping to find allies and knowledge. Instead, they had found a universe that saw them as barely worth noticing. The shuttle docked with the Void Reaper. There was no sound, no vibration. The ancient ship accepted them without resistance, like a mouth opening to swallow something small. The airlock opened. Elena stepped into darkness. The interior of the Void Reaper was nothing like she had expected. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than any species in the Concord. The walls were made of black metal that seemed to drink the light from their flashlights. Strange crystal tubes ran along the ceiling, filled with liquid that had stopped flowing long ago. The air was cold and still. It smelled like nothing at all. "Atmospheric readings are stable," said one of the Velith engineers. "Gravity is 0.9 standard. No biological hazards detected." "The ship is preserving itself," Malus said. "After 3,000 years, it maintains perfect environmental conditions. The technology required for this is beyond anything we possess." They moved deeper into the ship. Elena stayed at the back as ordered, her recording device capturing everything. But her eyes saw more than the camera. She noticed things the others missed. Small details. Patterns in the walls that repeated at regular intervals. Symbols carved into the metal that looked almost like writing. She wanted to stop and study them. She wanted to ask questions. But she remembered her orders and kept walking. The expedition traveled for nearly an hour before they reached the bridge. The chamber was vast. It rose above them like a cathedral, its ceiling lost in shadows. The walls curved inward, covered with more of those strange symbols. In the center of the room, rising from the floor like an altar, was a single console. It was made of the same black metal as the rest of the ship, but its surface was covered with crystals that caught the light and held it. Every flashlight in the room pointed at the console. Every eye stared at it with hunger and fear. "The command center," Milas whispered. 46 expeditions, and we have never found it before. The ship was hiding this from us. "Or waiting," said one of the Irani. Her voice was soft and strange like wind through dead leaves. "This ship thinks. It feels. I sense something sleeping in its heart. Something vast." "Can you communicate with it?" Milas asked. "I will try." The Irani stepped forward. Her name was Sarath, and she was one of the most powerful telepaths in the Concord. She had broken the minds of enemy commanders. She had reached across light years to send messages through thought alone. Now she closed her 3 eyes and reached out to the ship. Silence. Sarath pushed harder. Her body trembled. Sweat appeared on her pale skin. She was throwing everything she had at the consciousness inside the ship, trying to wake it, trying to make it listen. Nothing happened. Sarath opened her eyes and stumbled backward. It does not respond. The mind is there, but it refuses to speak. It is waiting for something, but not for me. "Let me try," said the lead Velith engineer. His name was Torax, and he had spent his entire life studying ancient technology. He approached the console and examined it with instruments that Elena did not recognize. Then he pressed his multi-jointed hands against its surface and began entering commands. The console stayed dark. Torax tried again. He changed his approach. He used different frequencies, different codes, different languages. He worked for 30 minutes, his movements becoming more and more frustrated. Finally, he stepped back. "The interface does not recognize Velith biology. It does not recognize any of our standard communication protocols. The system is functional. I can detect power flowing through it, but it will not respond to me." "Kreth?" Malus turned to the 2 massive warriors. "Your ancestors were known for taking technology by force, perhaps a more direct approach." The larger Kreth, a scarred veteran named Grath, stepped forward. He drew his fist back and struck the console with enough force to crack stone. The console did not even vibrate. Grath struck it again, and again. He hit it with his weapon. He hit it with his head. Nothing. The ancient metal absorbed every blow without damage. "The architects built to last," Malus said bitterly. Their materials are beyond our ability to damage. We cannot force our way in. One by one, the other specialists tried. The Threll biologist attempted to analyze the ship's organic components. There were none. The Irani telepaths worked together, combining their power. Still nothing. Even the equipment they had brought failed to produce results. The Void Reaper sat in darkness, patient and silent, watching them fail. Elena stood at the back of the room and watched. She had not been asked to try anything, and she had not offered. But something was bothering her, a thought that would not go away. She looked at the console. She looked at the experts standing around it, discussing theories in languages she barely understood. She looked at the symbols on the walls, the ones that almost looked like writing, and she realized something. Everyone was trying to communicate with the ship in complex ways. They were using technology and telepathy and force. They were approaching the console as a puzzle to be solved, a lock to be picked, a code to be broken. But what if it was simpler than that? What if the ship was just waiting to be asked? Elena took a step forward before she could stop herself. "Human," Malus snapped. "Stay back. This is not your concern." "I know," Elena said, "but has anyone just tried turning it on?" Silence fell over the room. 12 aliens turned to stare at her with expressions ranging from confusion to contempt. "Turning it on?" Malus repeated. "This is not a children's toy, human. This is the most advanced technology in the galaxy. You cannot simply press a button and expect it to respond." "I understand that, but you have been trying complicated things for 3,000 years. What if the answer's simple? What if it just needs someone to touch it and ask?" "The arrogance of youth," Torax muttered. "She knows nothing of our science, so she assumes it must be easy." "Let her try," Sarath said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the Irani telepath. Her three eyes were fixed on Elena with an intensity that made the human uncomfortable. "I sense something, a connection." "Let her try." Malus hesitated. She did not want to let the human touch the sacred console. She did not want to admit that her team had failed where a child might succeed. But she was also a scientist, and scientists did not ignore possibilities. "Very well," she said. "Touch the console, human. Show us how simple it is." Elena walked forward. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Every eye in the room was on her. Every breath was held. She felt like she was walking to her own execution. The console rose before her, covered with symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Up close, she could see that the crystals on its surface were arranged in patterns. Not random patterns, deliberate ones, like keys on a keyboard. She reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the console, and the universe changed. Light exploded through the Void Reaper. Every dark corridor blazed with sudden brightness. Every dead system roared to life. The ship shuddered, not with damage, but with awakening, like a great beast opening its eyes after a long sleep. Elena tried to pull her hand back, but she could not move. The console was holding her in place, not with force, but with connection. She could feel the ship in her mind. It was vast. It was ancient. It was alive. And it was speaking to her. The voice filled the chamber like thunder from a clear sky. It spoke in a language that Elena did not know, but somehow understood perfectly. The words carved themselves into her thoughts with absolute clarity. Genetic signature recognized. Descendant confirmed. Welcome, child of Earth. The Void Reaper has waited 3,000 years for your arrival. The inheritance is ready to be claimed. Malus stumbled backward. Torax dropped his instruments. The Kreth warriors reached for weapons they could not use. Only Sarath remained still, her three eyes wide with understanding. "Impossible," Malus whispered. It responded to her. The ship responded to the human. "Query received," the voice continued. "This unit will now provide historical context. Displaying archive data?" The air above the console shimmered. Light gathered and formed into shapes, images. Holographic projections of things that had been dead for longer than most civilizations had existed. Elena saw ships, thousands of ships, millions of ships, a fleet that stretched across the stars like a blanket of shadow. She saw worlds being built. She saw life being seeded on empty planets. She saw a galaxy being shaped by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. And she saw the beings doing it. They were tall. They stood on two legs. They had two arms and two eyes and faces that expressed emotion in familiar ways. They were not identical to humans. They were older, more refined. Their technology was built into their bodies like a second skin, but the shape was the same. The basic design was unmistakable. The architects looked like humans. "What is this?" Elena breathed. "Historical archive of the seeding protocol." The architects traveled the galaxy for 4 million years, creating life on suitable worlds. Each world received a unique design. Each species was given gifts to help them grow. But only one world received the original template. Only one species was given the key to the inheritance. The holographic display focused on a single world, blue and green and white, beautiful and small and impossibly precious. Earth. Earth was the last seeding. The architects knew their time was ending. They placed their children there and left them the inheritance fleet. When the children reached the stars, the fleet would awaken. Elena stared at the image of her home world. Her thoughts were chaos. Her heart was somewhere between joy and terror. Everything she had been taught about human history was wrong. Everything the galaxy believed about humans was wrong. They were not newcomers. They were not children. They were the inheritors of the oldest civilization the universe had ever known. "The architects," Malus said. Her voice was hollow. "The architects were human, and they left everything to them." The holographic display shifted again. Now it showed the galaxy as it was today, with all the worlds of the Concord marked in light. And among them, hidden in the darkness between stars, were other lights. Thousands of other lights. Ships. Waiting ships. Ships like the Void Reaper, sleeping until the moment they were called. Inheritance fleet status. Dormant. 10,000 vessels await activation. This unit is prepared to broadcast the awakening signal upon command. Elena finally managed to pull her hand away from the console. She stepped back, breathing hard, her mind reeling. The other members of the expedition were staring at her like she was a stranger, like she was a threat, like she was something they did not understand and could not control. 10,000 ships, Torak said. 10,000 ships like this one, in the hands of humans. "The galaxy," Grath rumbled. "The galaxy is theirs. They could conquer everything." "No," Elena said. The word came out before she could think about it. "No, that's not what this is for. The architects didn't leave us a weapon. They left us a responsibility." But even as she spoke, she could see the fear in their eyes. And she knew that fear would spread across the ship, across the fleet, across the entire galaxy. Everything was about to change. And Elena Vasquez, junior systems analyst from Earth, was standing at the center of it all. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the awakened ship. Elena stood before the console, surrounded by aliens who had spent their entire lives believing they understood the universe. Now that understanding was broken. Now everything they knew was wrong. Senior scientist Malus was the first to move. She stepped forward slowly, her 4 eyes fixed on Elena, with an expression that mixed wonder and horror in equal measure. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely louder than a whisper. "Show me again. Show me the architects." Elena did not know how to control the ship. She did not know how to command it. But when she thought about the architects, when she focused on her desire to see them again, the holographic display responded. Images formed in the air above the console. The ancient beings appeared once more, going about their work across the galaxy. Malus watched in silence. Her scientific mind was trying to process what she was seeing, trying to fit this new information into frameworks that were built for a different reality. The architects had been studied for thousands of years. Every species in the Concord had theories about them. Some believed they were energy beings. Others thought they were machine intelligence. A few even believed they were gods. No one had ever considered that they might be human. "The genetic structure," Malus said, "we have analyzed organic samples found on architect ruins across the galaxy. The DNA never matched any known species. We assumed they were too different, too advanced, too far removed from modern life. But the truth was simpler. We were looking for something alien. We never thought to compare them to humans." Because humans are nothing, Grath growled. The massive Kreth warrior had his hand on his weapon. His scales were raised in the display of aggression that his species showed before battle. Humans are weak. Humans are slow. Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no strength. They are the least of all the species in the Concord. They cannot be the chosen ones. Chosen by whom? Sarath asked. The Irani telepath had not moved from her place near the wall. Her three eyes were still watching Elena with that strange intensity. The architects did not ask permission. They did not hold a contest. They simply selected the species they wanted to inherit their legacy, and they selected humanity. But why? Torax demanded. The Velith engineer was staring at the holographic images with something close to rage. We are older than them. We are smarter than them. Our technology was crossing the stars while humans were still living in caves. What makes them worthy of this inheritance? Query detected, the ship's voice said, accessing archive data on selection criteria. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed data streams and genetic sequences in information that Elena could not fully understand. But some of it was clear. Charts comparing different species, graphs showing potential and growth, and something labeled Adaptability Index. The architects studied all seeded species before selecting an inheritor. Many candidates were considered. The Velith possessed high intelligence but low genetic flexibility. The Kraith possessed strength but reduced capacity for cooperation. The Irani possessed mental abilities but limited physical adaptability. The display focused on a single graph. It showed a species that ranked moderate in most categories but exceptional in one, a measurement labeled Survival Persistence. Humans demonstrated the highest survival persistence of any seeded species. They adapted to extreme environments. They recovered from near-extinction events. They developed technology despite lacking natural advantages. Most importantly, they demonstrated the capacity to change their behavior based on experience. This capacity was identified as essential for responsible use of the inheritance fleet. They chose us because we are survivors, Elena said slowly. The words felt strange in her mouth. She had never thought of humanity as special. On Earth, humans had always seemed fragile compared to other animals. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. They survived through cleverness and cooperation and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Now she understood that this was exactly why the architects had chosen them. Survivors, Grath spat. Cockroaches survive. Bacteria survive. Survival means nothing. Survival means everything, Sarah said quietly. The architects built a fleet that could conquer the galaxy. They needed to give it to someone who would not use it for conquest. Someone who understood the value of life because they had fought so hard to keep their own. This is insane, Mela said. You are suggesting that the most powerful weapons in the galaxy were given to the weakest species because they might be more responsible? That is not science. That is hope. That is faith. The architects operated on timescales that required both science and faith, the ship said. They seeded life knowing they would not survive to see it grow. They built the inheritance fleet knowing they would not be there to guide its use. They made their choice and accepted the consequences. The choice was humanity. Commander Jael's voice crackled over the communication system. Expedition team, report. What is happening on board? Our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the Void Reaper. The ship is fully active. Malus touched her communicator. Commander, we have made contact with the ship's systems. The human, Lieutenant Vasquez, was able to interface with the central console. The ship has provided historical data about the architects. What kind of data? Malus hesitated. How could she explain this? How could she tell the commander that everything they believed was wrong? That the mysterious ancient race was actually an earlier version of the species they had all dismissed as insignificant? Commander, I think you need to see this for yourself. The response was immediate. I am on my way. While they waited, Elena explored the console. She did not touch it again, but she studied the symbols on its surface and the patterns in its crystals. Some of them were starting to make sense to her, not because she had learned them, but because they felt familiar, like a language she had known in a dream and forgotten upon waking. You can read it, Sarah said. The Irani had moved closer without making a sound. The script of the architects, it speaks to you. I do not know how, Elena admitted. I never studied any alien languages. I barely passed my linguistics courses at the academy. But when I look at these symbols, I understand them. Not perfectly, but enough. The connection is in your blood. The architects design humans to interface with their technology. When you touch the console, the ship recognizes you as one of its creators. It gives you access that no other species can have. That does not seem fair? Sarath made a sound that might have been a laugh. The universe is not fair, human. The Velith did nothing to deserve their intelligence. The Kreth did nothing to deserve their strength. The Irani did nothing to deserve their telepathy. These are gifts given without reason or justice. Now you have received a gift as well. What matters is what you do with it. Elena looked around the chamber. The other expedition members were still staring at her with suspicion and fear. She understood why. If humanity now controlled the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, then every other species was at their mercy. The balance of power that had maintained peace for centuries had just been destroyed, and she was the one who had destroyed it. I did not ask for this, she said. No one asks for fate, Sarath replied. Fate simply happens. The question is whether you will rise to meet it. Commander Jael arrived 20 minutes later. He walked into the chamber with 5 armed guards, his golden eyes scanning every corner for threats. When he saw the holographic displays still floating above the console, he stopped. His scales shifted from blue to a darker shade that Elena did not recognize. Report, he said. All of it. Malus explained everything. The activation of the console, the ship's response to human touch, the historical archives showing the true nature of the architects, the existence of 10,000 sleeping vessels scattered across the galaxy, waiting to be awakened. Jael listened without interrupting. His expression did not change, but Elena could see his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides, the only sign of the storm raging inside him. 10,000 ships, he said when Malus finished, each one as powerful as this one. Possibly more powerful, Commander. The archives suggest that the Void Reaper is a scout vessel. The main fleet contains much larger ships with weapon systems that we cannot even imagine. And all of it responds only to humans. That is correct. Jael turned to Elena. She had never been the focus of such intense attention. His gold eyes seemed to look straight through her, examining her soul and finding it lacking. Lieutenant Vasquez, do you understand what you have done? I touched a console, Commander. I did not know what would happen. Ignorance does not excuse consequences. You have just given your species control over enough firepower to destroy the Concord, to conquer every world in the galaxy, to end civilizations that have existed for longer than humanity has been alive. I would never do that. Humanity would never do that. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for 40 years. We know almost nothing about you. We do not know what you are capable of. We do not know what you want. And now we must trust you with the most dangerous weapons in existence. Elena straightened her spine. She was small and young and frightened, but she refused to let this man make her feel ashamed. Commander, what happened to the species who tried to claim this ship before? The 17 civilizations you mentioned? Jael paused. They failed. The ship rejected them. Did they fail because they were weak? Or did they fail because they were not the right ones to control this power? What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that the architects were not stupid. They built technology that would last for millions of years. They planned for every possibility. They must have known that other species would try to claim the inheritance, and they designed the ships to reject anyone who was not ready for the responsibility. That is a comforting theory, but theories do not protect civilizations. No, Elena agreed. Actions do. And I am telling you, Commander, that humanity will not use this fleet for conquest. That is not who we are. You speak for all of humanity? I speak for myself, but I know my people. We have spent our entire history fighting each other, learning the hard way that war destroys more than it builds. We finally made it to the stars hoping to find something better. We are not going to ruin that by becoming tyrants. Jael stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his guards. Return to the shuttle. I need to contact the Concord Council. Commander, one of the guards said, should we not secure the human? If she controls the ship, then securing her will accomplish nothing except making her angry. Go. The guards left. Jael touched his communicator and stepped away to make his call in private. Elena could hear fragments of the conversation. Words like crisis and emergency session, an unprecedented threat. Each word felt like a weight being added to her shoulders. Torax approached her. The Velith engineer's anger had faded, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. How does it feel? To have the power of gods? Terrifying, Elena admitted. I keep waiting to wake up and discover this was all a dream. It is not a dream. This is real. And you must decide what to do with it. I already decided. I will not use this fleet for war. A noble sentiment. But what happens when someone else decides for you? The Kreth will not accept human supremacy. They will test you. They will attack your colonies to see if you will respond. What will you do then? Elena did not have an answer. She had thought about refusing to use the fleet for conquest. She had not thought about what would happen when others forced the issue. Could she truly keep the peace if everyone expected war? Incoming communication from Inheritance. Fleet Node 7, the ship announced. A second vessel has detected human biosigns in this sector. It is requesting permission to join the primary unit. Everyone in the chamber froze. A second vessel? Malus whispered. There is another architect ship nearby? Affirmative. Inheritance Fleet Node 7. Designation. Stormbringer is currently in dormant status in the asteroid field of the Veth system. It detected the activation of this unit and is now requesting permission to awaken. Elena felt her blood run cold. The Void Reaper had been dormant for 3,000 years. One touch from a human had woken it. Now another ship wanted to wake as well. And there were 10,000 more waiting across the galaxy. What happens if I give permission? She asked. Stormbringer will activate all systems and join this unit in formation. Combined firepower will increase by approximately 300%. 300%. And that was just one additional ship. If all 10,000 activated at once... Do not give permission, Giles said. He had finished his call and was staring at Elena with something close to fear. The Concord Council is convening an emergency session. They need time to discuss this situation. If more ships activate before they reach a decision, there will be panic. I understand, Elena said. She turned to the console, not touching it but speaking to it directly. Stormbringer, remain in dormant status. Do not activate without direct orders from a human commander. Acknowledged. Stormbringer will maintain dormant status until further notice. Elena let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. She had just given a command to an ancient warship, and it had obeyed. The power was real. It was hers to use or misuse as she chose. The weight of that responsibility was almost too heavy to bear. You did well, Sarath said quietly. You showed restraint. That is the first step. The first step toward what? Toward proving that the architects made the right choice. Commander Jael gathered the expedition team and ordered them back to the shuttles. The scientific mission was over. This was now a political matter, far above the authority of scientists and engineers. The Concord Council would decide what to do about the Inheritance fleet. But before Elena left, she turned back to look at the console one last time. The holographic displays had faded, but the ship was still awake. She could feel its presence in her mind, like a vast intelligence waiting patiently for instructions. Why me? She whispered. Out of all the humans in the galaxy, why did you respond to me? You were the first to ask simply, the ship replied. Others came with tools and weapons and complicated plans. You came with curiosity and an open hand. That is what the architects intended. That is what makes you worthy. Elena thought about that as she walked back to the shuttle. She had not done anything special. She had not earned this power through skill or training or intelligence. She had simply asked a question that no one else had thought to ask. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the architects had not wanted to give their inheritance to the strongest or the smartest. Maybe they had wanted to give it to the ones who would ask first and conquer later. The ones who would see a mystery and try to understand it before trying to control it. If that was true, then perhaps humanity really was the right choice. But Elena knew that theory would not be enough to convince the galaxy. The Concord would see humans as a threat. The Kreth would see them as enemies. The Velith would see them as unworthy. Fear and jealousy would spread like fire through dry grass. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, 10,000 ships were waiting for a human to call them, waiting for the inheritance to be claimed. Elena did not know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same. The shuttle departed from the Void Reaper, carrying its passengers back to a universe that no longer made sense. Behind them, the ancient ship hung in the void, its systems humming with power that had been dormant for 3,000 years. For the first time since the architects had vanished, the galaxy had new masters. Whether that was a blessing or a curse remained to be seen. The news spread faster than light. Within hours of the expedition's return, every major communication network in the Concord was broadcasting the same story. The Void Reaper had awakened. The architects had been identified. Humanity had inherited a fleet of 10,000 warships that could crush any force in the known galaxy. Elena watched the reports from her quarters on the Starlight Covenant. She had been confined there on Commander Jael's orders, not as a prisoner, but as a precaution. The other species on the ship were afraid of her. She could see it in their eyes when they passed her in the corridors. She could hear it in their whispered conversations. The human girl who had touched a console and changed the universe. "You should eat something," said a voice from the doorway. Elena turned to find Sarath standing there. The Irani telepath had been the only alien to show her any kindness since the discovery. Perhaps because telepaths understood fear better than most, or perhaps because she had sensed something in Elena that others had missed. "I am not hungry." That was not a suggestion. Sarath entered the room and placed a tray of food on the small table. "You have not eaten in 16 hours. Your body requires fuel, whether you want it or not." Elena looked at the food without interest. It was standard Concord rations, designed to be edible by multiple species. The taste was somewhere between cardboard and regret. But Sarath was right. Her body was running on empty. She forced herself to eat. "The Concord Council has been in session for 12 hours, Sarath said. "They cannot agree on anything. The Velith want to study you. The Kreth want to destroy you. The Irani want to negotiate. And the other species are too frightened to take any position at all. What do you think they will decide? Nothing. They will argue until the situation forces them to act. That is how the Concord has always worked. Great decisions are made in crisis, not in comfort." "And what kind of crisis are we waiting for?" Sarath was silent for a moment. Her three eyes looked at something far away, something only she could see. "The Kreth Dominion has mobilized their war fleet. They are moving toward your home system." Elena's heart stopped. "What?" "They have not declared their intentions, but the movement is clear. 300 warships, including their flagship, the Iron Fist. They will reach Earth within 4 days. That is an invasion force. They are going to attack Earth. Perhaps they are testing you, seeing if you will use the inheritance fleet to protect your home. Either way, the crisis you asked about is coming." Elena stood up so fast she knocked the tray off the table. Food scattered across the floor, but she did not notice. Her mind was racing. Earth. Her home. 7 billion people who had no idea that an alien war fleet was coming for them. "I need to talk to Commander Jael. He will not help you. The Concord has no treaty with Earth that requires mutual defense. If the Kreth attack, the Concord will officially condemn the action and do nothing." "Then I need to talk to the Void Reaper." Sarath studied her with those unblinking eyes. "You would use the inheritance fleet to defend Earth?" "Of course I would." "Would you not defend your home?" "Yes, but I would also consider the consequences. If you activate the fleet to fight the Kreth, you prove their fears correct. You show the galaxy that humans will use this power for war. Even if it is defensive war, even if it is justified, it will make every other species more afraid of you." "What is the alternative? Let them destroy Earth? Let billions of people die because I was too worried about appearances?" "There is no good alternative. That is the nature of power. Every choice has consequences, and you cannot avoid them by refusing to choose." Elena sank back into her chair. The weight of the situation was crushing her. She was a junior systems analyst. She had been trained to manage databases and run diagnostics and write reports. She had not been trained to make decisions that would affect billions of lives. "I do not know what to do," she admitted. "I do not know how to handle this." No one does. That is why the architects left the inheritance to a species that would ask questions instead of assuming answers. You are supposed to be uncertain. You are supposed to struggle. That is how wisdom is born. Wisdom will not stop the Kreth fleet. No, but wisdom will help you decide whether to stop it with violence or with something else. Elena thought about that. Violence was the obvious answer. The Void Reaper alone might be able to defeat the Kreth fleet, and with the entire inheritance fleet activated, it would be no contest at all. But Sarath was right about the consequences. If humanity showed the galaxy that they would use their power for destruction, then they would become exactly what everyone feared. There had to be another way. "The Stormbringer," Elena said suddenly. "The second ship that contacted us. Where is it now?" "Still in the Veth system. Dormant as you ordered." "What if I activated it but did not use it for combat? What if I brought it to Earth as a show of force, without actually attacking anyone? A display of power without violence. That might work against some species. But the Kreth respect only strength. They will see restraint as weakness. Then I will have to show them strength without destruction. I will have to prove that humanity can be powerful and merciful at the same time." Sarath made a sound that might have been approval. "That is a difficult path, but it is the right one." Elena stood up again. This time she knew exactly where she needed to go. "Can you help me get to the Void Reaper? I need to interface with the ship's systems again. Commander Jael has forbidden anyone from returning to the ship. Then I will have to disobey orders." Sarath was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, an expression that looked strange on her alien face. "I was hoping you would say that. Follow me." They moved through the corridors of the Starlight Covenant like shadows. Sarath used her telepathic abilities to sense the positions of guards and crew members, guiding Elena through routes that avoided detection. It was not easy. The ship was on high alert, and every doorway was watched. But they reached the shuttle bay without being caught. The shuttle that had carried them to the Void Reaper was still there, locked down and guarded by 2 Veleth soldiers. Sarath touched Elena's arm. "Wait here. I will handle this." She walked toward the guards with calm confidence. They raised their weapons, demanding identification and authorization. Sarath spoke to them in their own language, her voice soft and soothing. Elena could not hear the words, but she could see the effect. The guards' postures relaxed, their weapons lowered. Their eyes became distant and unfocused. Sarath turned and gestured for Elena to follow. "What did you do to them?" Elena asked as they boarded the shuttle. "I suggested that they had already checked our authorization and found it satisfactory. They will remember nothing of our departure." "That seems unethical." "It is. But ethics are luxuries we cannot afford right now. Your home is in danger, and you are the only one who can save it." The shuttle launched into space. Elena watched through the viewport as the Starlight Covenant shrank behind them, replaced by the endless darkness of the void. Ahead, the Void Reaper waited. The ancient ship seemed even more impressive now that it was fully awake. Light pulsed through its hull in patterns that suggested life and thought. Its weapons, invisible before, were now clearly visible as bulges and protrusions along its surface. It was a predator that had stopped pretending to sleep. Elena docked the shuttle and made her way to the bridge. The holographic displays activated as soon as she entered, recognizing her presence. The console glowed with soft light, waiting for her touch. "I need to contact the Stormbringer," she said, "and any other ships within communication range. Accessing Inheritance Fleet Network. 47 vessels are within communication range. Stormbringer is available for direct link." 47 ships. Elena had not expected so many to be so close. The architects had scattered their fleet across the galaxy, but they had placed multiple vessels in each sector, a defensive network that could respond to threats anywhere. Open communication with Stormbringer. A holographic display formed in the air before her. It showed the second ship, a vessel similar to the Void Reaper, but larger, with more pronounced weapons arrays. Its hull was darker, almost invisible against the background of stars. Stormbringer acknowledging communication, awaiting orders. "I am Lieutenant Elena Vasquez of the human species. I am issuing an emergency activation order. Stormbringer is to proceed to the Sol system and take up defensive position around the third planet, designated Earth. Understood. Stormbringer will activate and proceed to designated coordinates. Estimated arrival, 31 hours. 31 hours. The Kreth fleet would reach Earth in 4 days. That gave her time to prepare. But she needed more than one ship. The Kreth had 300 warships. Even with the superior technology of the Inheritance fleet, she needed enough firepower to make them hesitate. How many ships can reach Earth within 4 days? 12 vessels can reach designated coordinates within the specified time frame. Vessel classifications include 3 scout units, 5 defensive platforms, 3 strike cruisers, and 1 command carrier. Activate all of them. Have them proceed to Earth and take up defensive positions. No offensive action is to be taken unless I specifically order it. Acknowledged. Activation orders transmitted. 12 vessels will proceed to Sol system. Elena let out a breath. 12 ships against 300. The numbers were against her, but the technology was not. The architects had built weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop stars. 12 of their ships might be enough to hold the line, but she did not want to fight at all. She wanted to show the Kreth that they could not bully humanity, while also showing them that humanity would not become bullies themselves. Void Reaper, I need information about Kreth psychology, their military traditions, their concept of honor. Accessing cultural database. The Kreth Dominion is a warrior culture that values strength, courage, and direct confrontation. Honor is gained through combat and lost through cowardice. Their military tradition emphasizes personal challenge between commanders as a way to resolve disputes without mass casualties. Personal challenge. That was interesting. Elena had read about the Kreth in her training, but she had not paid much attention to their cultural practices. Now she wished she had studied harder. What kind of personal challenge? Kreth commanders may issue or accept challenges of single combat. The winner of such a challenge is considered victorious in the larger dispute. This tradition dates back to their pre-spaceflight era, when resource wars were devastating their civilization. The challenge system was developed to preserve warrior honor while reducing unnecessary death. A system designed to prevent war while still allowing warriors to prove their worth. The Kreth were not mindless brutes. They had developed sophisticated social mechanisms to manage their aggressive nature, and that gave Elena an idea. If I challenged the Kreth commander to single combat, what would happen? The challenge would be considered valid under Kreth tradition. If the Kreth commander refused, he would be dishonored. If he accepted and lost, the Kreth fleet would be obligated to withdraw. If he accepted and won, you would be dead, and the Inheritance fleet would pass to the next available human. What if I did not fight personally? What if I challenged him to ship-to-ship combat instead? My ship against his. Winner takes all? That variation is acceptable under Kreth tradition, though less honored than personal combat. The outcome would be binding on both parties. Elena smiled. It was a dangerous plan, but it might work. The Void Reaper against the Kreth flagship. One battle to decide the fate of Earth. If she won, the Kreth would have to withdraw. If she lost, she would be dead, and someone else would have to figure out how to save humanity. But she would not lose. The architects had built their ships to be unbeatable. The Kreth might be fierce warriors, but they were fighting against technology that was millions of years more advanced than their own. Set course for Earth, she ordered, and prepare a communication to the Kreth fleet commander. I am going to challenge him to a duel. The Void Reaper began to move. Its engines, silent for 3,000 years, roared to life with power that made the stars themselves seem dim. Elena watched the view through the holographic displays, her heart pounding with fear and determination. She was going home, and she was bringing an army with her. Behind her across the galaxy, 11 more ships began their journeys. Ancient vessels awakening from endless sleep, their systems coming online, their weapons charging. The Inheritance fleet was stirring. Not all of it, not yet, but enough. The Kreth had wanted to test humanity. They had wanted to see if the new masters of the Architect's legacy were worthy of their power. They were about to get their answer. Commander Jael discovered Elena's escape 2 hours after she left. He stood on the bridge of the Starlight Covenant. watching the sensor readings that showed the Void Reaper moving away at speeds his ship could not match. "She is heading for Earth," his adjutant reported, "and our sensors are detecting other vessels activating across the sector. The Inheritance fleet is waking up." Giles said nothing for a long moment. He had spent his entire career trying to protect the Concorde from threats. Now he was watching the greatest threat of all move beyond his control. "Contact the Concord Council," he said finally. "Tell them that the human has taken action. The war for the galaxy has begun." But even as he gave the order, Giles felt something he had not expected. Hope. The human girl had not fled in fear. She had not waited for others to solve her problems. She had taken responsibility for her people and was going to defend them. Perhaps the architects had known what they were doing after all. Perhaps humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed. Or perhaps they were all about to die. Only time would tell. Earth had never looked so beautiful. Elena stood on the bridge of the Void Reaper and watched her home world turn slowly in the darkness. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns that changed every moment. 7 billion people lived down there, going about their daily lives without knowing that an alien war fleet was coming to destroy them. Not if she could help it. "Inheritance fleet units have arrived in system," the ship announced. 12 vessels now in defensive formation around Earth. Elena looked at the tactical display. The 12 ships were arranged in a sphere around the planet, their weapons ready, their shields active. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, built by a civilization that had conquered physics itself. Together, they represented more firepower than every human weapon ever created, and she controlled all of them. The responsibility was terrifying. One wrong decision and billions would die. One moment of weakness and humanity's future would be lost. Elena was 26 years old. She had graduated from the Earth Space Academy 3 years ago. She had never commanded anything more important than a data management team. Now she commanded a fleet that could reshape the galaxy. "The Kreth will arrive in 16 hours, she said. "What do we know about their commander?" War Chief Grath Tal Vorik, veteran of 43 conflicts, undefeated in personal combat. He commands the Kreth flagship Iron Fist, the largest warship in the Dominion. He is known for ruthless efficiency and absolute dedication to Kreth honor. Undefeated in personal combat, that is not encouraging. His record is based on conventional warfare. He has never faced architect technology. But I have never faced combat at all. At least he has experience. Experience can be a limitation as well as an advantage. War Chief Grath will rely on tactics that have worked in the past. You will be forced to adapt to a situation you do not understand. Adaptation is humanity's greatest strength. Elena considered that. The ship was right. Grath had been fighting wars for longer than she had been alive. He knew how to win battles using the weapons and strategies he understood. But the Void Reaper was something completely outside his experience. He would have to adapt to fight it, and adapting was not what the Kreth did best. Maybe she had a chance after all. "Open a communication channel to Earth's government. They need to know what is happening." The holographic display shifted. A moment later, the face of Earth's Secretary General appeared. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, the kind of leader who had spent his entire career dealing with problems that had no good solutions. Now he was facing the biggest problem of all. "Lieutenant Vasquez, I have received reports about your activities. The Concord Council is furious. They are calling you a rogue agent, a threat to galactic peace. With respect, Secretary General, the Kreth were coming to destroy Earth before I did anything. I am trying to stop them. By activating an ancient alien war fleet? Do you understand how dangerous that is? You have made humanity the most feared species in the galaxy. Every civilization that was neutral before is now preparing for war. They were already preparing for war. The only difference is now we can fight back." The Secretary General rubbed his eyes. "I have been in politics for 40 years. I have negotiated with every species in the Concord. I know how they think. And I am telling you that what you are doing will make things worse. What would you have me do? Let the Kreth destroy our home? Let 7 billion people die because it might upset the political balance? No, of course not. But there must be a better way than this. If there is, I have not found it. The Kreth respect only strength. I am going to show them strength, and then I am going to show them mercy. That is the only way to change how they see us." The Secretary General was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "You sound very certain for someone so young." "I am not certain at all. I am terrified, but someone has to do something, and I am the only one who can control these ships. So I am going to do my best and hope it is enough. And if it is not enough, then humanity will have to find another way. But I do not intend to fail." The communication ended. Elena turned back to the tactical display, studying the positions of her ships and trying to imagine how the battle might unfold. She had never received military training. Everything she knew about combat came from games and stories, but the ship had tactical databases that stretched back millions of years. She would not be fighting alone. The hours passed slowly. Elena tried to rest but could not sleep. She tried to eat but could not taste the food. Her mind kept returning to the same thoughts, spinning in circles that led nowhere. What if she was wrong? What if the Kreth were stronger than she expected? What if humanity's first true test in the galaxy ended in failure? She was standing on the bridge, watching Earth turn beneath her, when the sensors detected the approaching fleet. Kreth War Fleet entering system, 312 vessels. Flagship Iron Fist is at the center of formation. Elena felt her heart rate spike. The enemy was here. There was no more time for doubt or fear. Now there was only action. Open a channel to the Kreth flagship. The holographic display formed a new image. War Chief Grath Tal Vorek was exactly what Elena had expected. Massive, scarred. His scales were the dark red of dried blood, and his eyes were the color of molten gold. He looked like a nightmare-given form, a creature built for war and nothing else. "Human," he growled. "You are the one who controls the Architect's ships, the child who thinks she can challenge the Dominion. I am Lieutenant Elena Vasquez of Earth, and I am not challenging the Dominion. I am defending my home." "Your home?" Grath's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "A tiny world at the edge of the galaxy, a species that has barely learned to walk among the stars. You are nothing. Your people are nothing. The only thing that makes you worthy of notice is the power you have stolen. I did not steal anything. The Architects left their fleet to humanity. We are the inheritors, whether you accept it or not." "Inheritors?" Grath spat the word like poison. "The Architects gave life to my ancestors. They shaped our world and made us strong, and then they gave their greatest treasures to weak, soft creatures who cannot even survive without clothing and shelter. It is an insult, a mockery, and I will not allow it to stand." "Then you will have to go through me." Grath laughed. It was a harsh sound, full of contempt and violence. "Through you? Child, my fleet has destroyed civilizations older than your entire species. We have burned worlds and shattered armadas. You have 12 ships. I have 300. The mathematics are not in your favor. Maybe not, but I did not come here to fight a numbers game. I came here to challenge you, War Chief. Ship to ship. The Void Reaper against the Iron Fist. Winner takes all." The laughter stopped. Grath's golden eyes narrowed, and something changed in his expression. The contempt was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Interest. Calculation. "You know our traditions. I know that the Kreth value honor above all else. I know that a challenge between commanders is the highest form of combat. And I know that if you refuse, your warriors will see you as a coward. You think to manipulate me with words? I have faced greater threats than your pathetic attempt at psychology. It is not manipulation. It is an offer. Fight me in single combat, and we will settle this without thousands dying. If you win, humanity will submit to whatever terms you demand. If I win, you will withdraw your fleet and leave Earth in peace." Grath was silent. Behind him, Elena could see other Kreth officers watching the exchange. Their expressions were impossible to read, but their body language suggested intense focus. This was a moment that would define their war chief's honor. "You are either very brave or very stupid," Grath said finally. "No one has ever defeated me in combat. Ship to ship or blade to blade, the result will be the same. You will die, and your precious Earth will burn." Then you have nothing to lose by accepting my challenge. Nothing except the satisfaction of watching your entire fleet destroyed. But very well, human. I accept your challenge. My ship against yours. The winner takes all. In 30 minutes, we meet in the space between our fleets. No support from either side. Just the Iron Fist and the Void Reaper. Agreed. Prepare to die, Lieutenant Vasquez. Your species' time in the stars is about to end. The communication ended. Elena stood on the bridge, her hands shaking, her heart pounding. She had done it. She had gotten Grath to accept a challenge that took the entire war down to a single battle. But now she actually had to win that battle. Void Reaper, show me everything you know about the Iron Fist. Weapons, shields, propulsion, weaknesses, all of it. The holographic display filled with data. The Iron Fist was enormous, nearly twice the size of the Void Reaper. It carried weapons that could crack moons and shields that had withstood the combined firepower of enemy fleets. It was the pride of the Kreth Dominion, built to intimidate and destroy. But it was still conventional technology, advanced by galactic standards, but conventional. The architects had been building ships when the Kreth were still learning to make fire. What are our advantages? Elena asked. Void Reaper systems exceed Iron Fist capabilities in all measurable categories. Weapons output is approximately 400% greater. Shield strength is approximately 600% greater. Propulsion speed is approximately 800% greater. Sensor range is approximately 1,000% greater. So we outmatch them in everything. Affirmative. However, War Chief Grath is an experienced commander. He will attempt to compensate for technical disadvantages with tactical skill. He may also employ unconventional strategies. What kind of unconventional strategies? Unknown. That is the nature of unconventional strategy. Elena almost laughed. The ship had a point. She could plan for everything she expected, but she could not plan for the unexpected. That was where instinct and adaptation came in. The minutes passed. Elena used the time to study the Void Reaper's controls, learning how to direct its weapons and shields and engines. The interface was intuitive, designed to respond to thought as much as touch. The ship seemed to anticipate her needs, offering options before she knew she wanted them. By the time the deadline arrived, she felt ready. Not confident, not certain, but ready. Iron Fist is approaching designated combat zone. War Chief Grath is requesting confirmation of challenge terms. Elena took a deep breath. Confirm all terms, single combat, no interference, winner takes all. Terms confirmed. Combat will begin when both vessels reach the designated zone. The Void Reaper moved forward. Elena watched through the display as the Iron Fist grew larger, its massive hull covered with weapons and armor that had conquered dozens of worlds. It was a brutal ship, designed to intimidate before it destroyed. Grath wanted his enemies to know fear before they died. Elena was afraid, but she was also determined. She had come too far to fail now. The two ships faced each other in the empty space between fleets. The Iron Fist was enormous, blocking out the stars behind it. The Void Reaper was smaller but sleeker, its black hull absorbing light while its weapons glowed with contained energy. Begin, Grath commanded. The Iron Fist opened fire. Dozens of weapons blazed to life, sending beams of destruction toward the Void Reaper. The attack was overwhelming, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Void Reaper's shields absorbed everything without flickering. Elena had expected the attack. Grath was testing her defenses, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. She let him fire for several seconds, let him see that his weapons were useless, let him understand what he was facing. Then she fired back. A single beam lanced out from the Void Reaper. It struck the Iron Fist shields and punched through them like they were not there. The beam carved a line across the Kreth flagship's hull, cutting through armor and destroying weapons emplacements. The Iron Fist shuddered. Emergency systems activated. Grath roared orders at his crew, demanding they return fire, demanding they find a way to hurt the human ship. But there was no way. The technology gap was too great. The Kreth were fighting against weapons that had been old when their ancestors were born. Elena could have ended the battle right there. She could have destroyed the Iron Fist with a single concentrated attack. The ship's systems told her exactly where to strike to cause a catastrophic reactor breach. Grath and his crew would be dead and the war would be over. But that was not why she had come. "War Chief Grath," she said, opening a communication channel. "Your shields are gone. Your weapons cannot hurt me. I could destroy you in the next 5 seconds. But I am not going to." Grath's face appeared on the display. His scales had gone pale, and his golden eyes were wide with something Elena had never expected to see in a Kreth warrior. Fear. "What game are you playing, human?" "No game. I challenged you because I wanted to prove that humanity can fight. Now I want to prove that we can also show mercy. You are defeated, War Chief. Your ship is crippled. Your fleet is watching. If I destroy you now, I prove that humans are just another violent species. But if I let you live, I prove something else. What could you possibly prove by sparing me? That the architects made the right choice. They gave us power because they believed we would use it wisely. Not for conquest, not for revenge, for protection. I am protecting my home today, but I do not have to kill you to do it." Grath was silent. His officers were staring at the display, listening to every word. The entire Kreth fleet was listening. The entire galaxy was listening, because Elena had left the communication channel open to everyone. "You have won the challenge," Grath said finally. His voice was rough, filled with emotions he did not know how to express. "By our traditions, I must withdraw. But understand this, human. You have not defeated the Dominion. You have only delayed us. I know, but maybe delay is enough. Maybe, given time, we can find a way to be allies instead of enemies." "Allies," Grath laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The Kreth do not make allies. We make enemies or we make subjects. There is nothing in between." "Then maybe it is time for something new. The architects gave you life and gave us their fleet. They must have wanted us to work together somehow. I am willing to try if you are." Grath did not answer. His face disappeared from the display, and the Iron Fist began to turn away. One by one, the Kreth warships followed, retreating from Earth, heading back to their own space. Elena watched them go, her body shaking with relief and exhaustion. She had done it. She had won the challenge without killing anyone. She had shown the galaxy that humanity could be powerful and merciful at the same time. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Kreth would be back. Other species would test her. The Concord would demand explanations and assurances. The responsibility she had taken on would never end. The Void Reaper hummed around her, its systems pulsing with energy that had waited 3,000 years to be used. Elena reached out and touched the console, feeling the ship's presence in her mind. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome, child of Earth. The inheritance is in good hands." Behind her through the viewport, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. 7 billion people who would never know how close they had come to destruction. 7 billion people who were counting on her to keep them safe. Elena closed her eyes and let herself breathe. One battle was over, but the war for humanity's future had just begun. 6 months had passed since the battle at Earth. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Kreth Dominion had withdrawn to their own borders, not in defeat but in contemplation. War Chief Grath had returned home a different creature than the one who had left. He spoke of the human girl who had shown him mercy when she could have shown destruction. He spoke of power used with wisdom instead of rage. His warriors did not know what to make of it. Neither did the Kreth leadership. The Concord had fractured. Some species demanded that humanity be destroyed before they became too powerful. Others argued that humanity had proven themselves worthy of their inheritance. The debates raged in council chambers across the galaxy, filled with fear and hope in equal measure. And at the center of it all stood Elena Vasquez, who was no longer a junior systems analyst from Earth. She stood on the bridge of the Void Reaper, watching the stars spin slowly past the viewport. The ship had become her home in these months, more familiar than any place she had ever lived. She knew its corridors like she knew her own heartbeat. She knew its systems like she knew her own thoughts. The bond between them had grown deeper with every passing day. "Admiral Vasquez," the voice came from the doorway. A young man in an Earth military uniform stood there, holding a data pad. His name was Marcus Chen, and he served as her adjutant. 6 months ago, Earth had no admirals. Now they had one, whether they had wanted one or not. "What is it, Marcus?" We have received a communication from the Irani Collective. They are requesting a meeting. Elena nodded. The Irani had been the first species to reach out after the battle. Sarath had returned to her people and spoken of what she had witnessed. The telepaths had listened, and they had begun to wonder if humanity might be different from what they had feared. What do they want to discuss? They did not say specifically, but the message included a phrase that our translators found interesting. They called it a proposal for shared guardianship. Shared guardianship. Elena turned the words over in her mind. The inheritance fleet was humanity's by right of blood. The architects had designed it that way, but that did not mean humans had to bear the responsibility alone. Arrange the meeting. I want to hear what they have to say. Marcus nodded and left. Elena turned back to the viewport, thinking about how far she had come. 6 months ago, she had been nobody, a young woman from a small world, dreaming of the stars, but never expecting to matter among them. Now she commanded a fleet that could reshape the galaxy. Now species that had existed for thousands of years sought her counsel. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was exactly what the architects had wanted. The meeting with the Irani was scheduled for 3 days later, at a neutral station in the middle of nowhere. Elena traveled alone, as she often did now. The Void Reaper drew attention wherever it went, but a small shuttle could slip through the gaps in the galaxy without notice. The station was called Waypoint 7. It was an old trading post, built by a species that had gone extinct centuries ago. Now it served as a meeting place for those who wanted privacy, the perfect location for a conversation that no one else could hear. Sarath was waiting for her in a private chamber. The Irani telepath looked the same as she had on the day they met, her 3 eyes calm and watchful, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Admiral Vasquez, thank you for coming. You do not need to call me Admiral. You knew me before the title. Titles matter. They shape how others see us and how we see ourselves. You are an Admiral now, whether you wanted to be or not. Elena sat down across from her old friend. Your message mentioned shared guardianship. What did you mean? Sarath was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. The Irani have watched humanity since you first joined the Concord. We are telepaths. We feel the emotions of other species, the currents of thought that flow beneath the surface. Most species fear us for this. You did not. I did not know enough to be afraid. Perhaps, but fear often comes from knowledge, not ignorance. Your species knew what we were, and you treated us with respect anyway. That was unusual. That was interesting. And now you control the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Concord is terrified. The Kreth are reconsidering everything they believe. Every species is watching you, waiting to see what you will do with your power. I have told them what I will do. I will protect those who need protection. I will not conquer. I will not dominate. The fleet is a shield, not a sword. Words are easy. Actions are harder. The galaxy has heard your words. They need to see your actions. Elena leaned forward. Then tell me what to do. I did not ask for this power. I did not train for this responsibility. If the Irani have wisdom to share, I am listening. Sarath's third eye, the one in the center of her forehead, seemed to glow brighter. The architects gave you the fleet because they trusted humanity. But humanity is not a single person. It is billions of minds, billions of hearts, billions of different wants and needs. How will you ensure that your species uses this power wisely? I do not know. I am trying to establish guidelines to create institutions that will outlast me, but I am making it up as I go. That is honest. Most leaders would pretend to have all the answers. Your honesty is why the Irani want to help. Help how? We propose an alliance, not a political alliance, bound by treaties and obligations, a partnership of minds. The Irani can sense thoughts and emotions. We can detect deception and fear and aggression. If humanity is to be the guardian of the galaxy, let us be your advisors. We will help you understand the species you protect. We will warn you when danger approaches. And we will tell you the truth, even when the truth is painful. Elena considered the offer. The Irani were powerful telepaths. Their ability to read minds made them valuable and frightening in equal measure. Having them as allies would give humanity insight that no other species possessed. But there were risks. Some humans would not trust the Orani. They would fear having their thoughts read, their secrets exposed. They would see the partnership as a surrender of privacy rather than a sharing of responsibility. What do the Orani gain from this alliance? Elena asked. Protection, Saras said simply. We are telepaths, but we are not warriors. Our numbers are small, and our enemies are many. Species fear what they do not understand, and they hate what they fear. The Orani have faced persecution for centuries. With humanity as our allies, that persecution would end. You want us to protect you in exchange for advising us. Yes, a fair trade, we believe. Our wisdom for your strength, our insight for your power. Together, we can do what neither species could do alone. Elena looked at her old friend. She remembered the day they had met on the expedition to the Void Reaper. Sarath had been the only alien who had treated her with kindness. She had helped Elena escape the Starlight Covenant when no one else would. She had believed in humanity when the rest of the galaxy saw them as children. I accept, Elena said, but I have conditions. The Orani will not read human minds without consent. They will not share human secrets with other species. And they will never use their abilities to manipulate us. If you agree to these terms, then we have a partnership. Sarath's eyes glowed with something that might have been joy. Agreed. The Orani Collective accepts your terms. From this day forward, we stand with humanity. They clasped hands, two species bound by choice rather than blood. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. The news of the Orani alliance spread quickly. Some in the galaxy saw it as proof of humanity's good intentions. Others saw it as a sign of their growing power. The debates continued, but something had shifted. Humanity was no longer alone. In the weeks that followed, other species began to reach out. The Threll, a peaceful species of scholars, requested permission to study the architect technology. Elena granted it, with restrictions. The Velith, after much internal debate, offered to share their engineering knowledge in exchange for access to Inheritance Fleet databases. Elena accepted, with conditions. Step by step, humanity was building bridges instead of walls. Not everyone approved. Earth's government worried that Elena was giving away too much. The Kreth hardliners called for renewed war. The conquered conservatives demanded that humanity be contained. But Elena kept moving forward, guided by a simple principle that the architects had taught her. Power was meant to be shared, not hoarded. The final test came 6 months after the battle at Earth. A species on the far edge of the galaxy sent a distress signal. They called themselves the Ven, and they were dying. A neighboring empire, the Sarkhan hegemony, had decided to wipe them out for reasons that made sense only to the Sarkhan. The Ven had no fleet, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. They were asking anyone who could hear them to help. No one in the conquered answered. The Ven were too far away, too unimportant, too inconvenient to save. Elena answered. The Void Reaper crossed half the galaxy in 3 days, traveling through pathways that no other ship could use. It arrived at the Ven homeworld to find a Sarkhan fleet in orbit, preparing to bombard the surface. Elena opened a communication channel. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Inheritance Fleet. You will cease your attack immediately and withdraw from the system. The Sarkhan commander laughed at her. He had never heard of humanity. He had never seen an architect ship. He had conquered dozens of worlds, and he was not going to be stopped by one small vessel. Then Elena activated the Void Reaper's weapons. She did not fire on the Sarkhan ships. Instead, she fired on the asteroids in the outer system, vaporizing 3 of them in rapid succession. The display of power was unmistakable. Any species with sensor technology could see what had happened. Any species with intelligence could understand what it meant. I will not ask again, Elena said. Leave this system now, or I will remove you. The Sarkhan fleet withdrew. They did not fight. They did not negotiate. They simply turned around and left, because they finally understood what they were facing. The technology gap was too vast. Fighting the Inheritance Fleet was suicide. The Ven emerged from their shelters and looked up at the sky. They saw the black ship hanging in their orbit, the ship that had saved them when no one else would. They did not know who humanity was. They did not know why a stranger had come to their defense. But they would remember, and they would tell others, and the story would spread across the galaxy, changing how every species thought about the inheritors of the architects. Elena stood on the bridge of the Void Reaper and watched the Ven celebrate their survival. She had saved a species today. Millions of lives preserved because she had been willing to act when others would not. This was what the Inheritance Fleet was for. Not conquest, not domination. Protection of those who could not protect themselves. Justice for those who had no one else to fight for them. The architects had given humanity the keys to the galaxy. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest, because humans knew what it felt like to be weak. They knew what it felt like to struggle. They knew the value of mercy because they had been shown so little of it in their history. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not power, compassion. 1 year after Elena touched the console on the Void Reaper, she stood before the Galactic Concord Assembly. Representatives from 300 species filled the vast chamber, their attention focused on the small human woman at the center. "You invited me here to explain humanity's intentions," Elena said. "You want to know if you should fear us. You want to know if we will become conquerors, the way so many powerful species have before." She paused, looking around the chamber at faces both familiar and strange. "I cannot promise you that humanity will never make mistakes. We are flawed like every species. We have wars in our history, cruelty, injustice. We are not perfect, and we never will be. But I can promise you this. We understand what power means. We spent our entire existence fighting to survive on a single world. We struggled against predators and diseases and ice ages and each other. We learned, slowly and painfully, that cooperation brings survival and conflict brings destruction. The architects gave us the Inheritance Fleet because they trusted us to use it wisely. I intend to honor that trust. The fleet will defend those who cannot defend themselves. It will protect those who face extinction. It will stand against tyranny wherever tyranny rises. We do not want to rule you. We want to stand beside you. We want to build a galaxy where power is used for protection, not domination, where strength serves the weak instead of crushing them." Elena raised her hand, and the holographic displays throughout the chamber activated. They showed the Inheritance Fleet, all 10,000 ships, spread across the galaxy in defensive positions. They showed the worlds that humanity had already helped, the species that had been saved, the conflicts that had been prevented. This is what the Inheritance Fleet is for. Not conquest, not empire, guardianship. We are the galaxy's protectors now, and we will not let it fall. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the Irani delegation rose to their feet. They began a sound that Elena had never heard before, a high, keening note that seemed to resonate with something deep in her soul. Other species began to join them, adding their own sounds to the chorus until the entire chamber was filled with a symphony of voices. Sarath appeared beside Elena, her 3 eyes glowing with emotion. They are singing the song of acceptance. It is the Irani way of welcoming a new ally into our community. The other species are adapting it to their own traditions. What does it mean? It means they believe you. It means they are willing to trust humanity, at least for now. It means the beginning of something new. Elena listened to the alien music filling the chamber. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. A young woman touching a console, an ancient ship awakening from sleep, a challenge accepted, and a battle won without killing. Step by step, decision by decision, she had walked a path that the architects had prepared for her long before she was born. She did not know what the future held. The Kreth might attack again. The Sarkhan might seek revenge. New threats would emerge and old allies might become enemies. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, and humanity was still young. But they were not alone anymore. And they never would be again. The song of acceptance faded into silence. Elena looked out at the assembly, at 300 species who had just welcomed humanity into their community. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, heavier than ever, but somehow bearable now. She was the admiral of the Inheritance Fleet, the guardian of a galaxy, the inheritor of the architect's dream, and she was just getting started. Far away in the depths of space, 10,000 ships hummed with patient energy. They had waited 3,000 years for their inheritors to arrive. Now they were awake, ready to serve, ready to protect. The galaxy had new guardians, and humanity would not let them down.